Welcome to the Growth with AI podcast. I'm Peter Martensen, and today's episode dives into how AI is reshaping digital marketing, performance strategy, and creative execution. Our guest is Josh Mangum, founder and the CEO of WiT Group, a results-driven marketing agency known for its pay-for-performance model and data-first approach to growth. We'll explore how AI is changing the way agencies deliver measurable results, where human creativity still gives brands their competitive edge, and what smart adoption of AI looks like for marketing teams today. Josh, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Peter. Good to be here.
Great. So tell me your story. How did you get started in marketing and doing what you're doing now?
Well, it's a long story, so I'll try to keep it short. I got a degree in marketing. I graduated around the '08 financial crisis, so jobs were not plentiful at that time for young marketers with a bachelor's degree. And so I got into digital marketing just from a strategic standpoint because at that time that was still somewhat the Wild West. There was established marketing directors with 10, 15, 20 years of experience that I was competing against, and I wasn't really going to win that battle. But nobody at that time really had the digital marketing stuff figured out. So I trained myself on digital marketing and kind of made a career out of that. But that's the reason that I got into it, was just out of sheer desperation.
So I'm curious, has it changed? Is it no longer still the Wild West?
Yeah, not at all. What is the Wild West at this point is AI. And so AI is kind of that newest layer on top of layer on top of layer on top of layer when it comes to digital marketing. Maybe 15 years ago, we were talking about Google and Bing. And now you've got every LLM and AI search engine and every ad platform and every automation and every marketing tactic out there that you can think of. And it's just getting more complex by the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, it definitely seems like there are new tools coming out really daily. So you've emphasized that AI is a tool, rather than a replacement for human creativity, which I completely agree with. How do you at the WiT Group balance AI-driven automation and production with maintaining human creative elements?
Yeah. We're having this conversation almost on a daily basis. And a lot of times it's not just us internally, but it is our clients and prospective new clients. They're asking that same question. How do you take advantage and use AI? But where does that line start and stop? And so what we've been preaching for about 2 years now is that AI is a very important tool, but it needs to be used as such. I mean, it can be incredibly helpful to make you more efficient, to help with research, to help organize thoughts, to take notes. There's a lot of good uses for AI. In my opinion, though, people come to a creative agency for creativity, and I don't think, probably going to be proven wrong in the next year or so, but at this point, I don't think AI is quite as creative and brilliant as the human beings can be. So what we try to do is we try to play to our strengths. So the brainstorming, the ideas need to come from the people that are working here at the agency. But the research, especially market research, is so much easier to grab these days than it used to be 5 years ago. So all the information that informs that creativity, in a lot of cases, comes from AI. We are not combing through market research reports like we used to, and we can get that information instantly. So a lot of the legwork is done by AI, but then now we have to use our human brains to understand the audience, to understand the psychographics, to understand the messaging, to understand the branding. And we have to be the ones that still act as that conduit and connect everything. So if we're able to do that and we're able to use AI to speed us up and to make us more efficient and then to automate things in the future, that's kind of, from our standpoint, that's the best combination.
So if you're not spending a lot of your time doing the actual research anymore, are you finding that you're just being able to spend a lot more time doing the creative stuff, the brainstorming and the like, or have you filled that space with something else?
Yes and no. I think we do spend a little bit more time. We've gained time, saving that time on the research side of things, but there's still a lot to do with how you put all that research together, how you apply that data and that information. And then on the flip side, every agency in America right now, in the world, I assume, is trying to find a way to be more efficient, to provide services and execute at a high level and be competitive with our rates and keep the productivity optimal for our clients. So the expectation just keeps getting higher and higher and higher for what we're able to produce within a given retainer or given amount of hours in a month. And AI is helping with that. I think for agencies that haven't adopted AI and begin to use it in that way are probably struggling pretty hard right now because the expectation from the market is different.
Yeah. So, you're talking about your rates, and your agency uses a pay for performance model. So, how has the integration of AI and the use of AI changed your ability to measure performance and optimize campaigns in real time and deliver value under that model for you?
I would say first and foremost that any ad platform that anybody is spending money on just about is heavily using AI within the platform itself. So machine learning has been huge, but it has been kicked into overdrive in the last couple of years because of AI. So when you talk about, okay, well, you've gained a little bit of time, you've gained some efficiency, where's that time going? A lot of our time from a performance advertising standpoint is put into data. So we have to be able to accurately track everything that happens on a website or within an ad campaign. We have to know exactly what's happening. We have to capture that data. We have to give the machine good information, or else the machine doesn't learn well. And so
Sure.
we spend an egregious amount of time making sure that our reports are accurate, that the conversions are coming through accurately, and that we're able to funnel all the information available to us from our attribution software, from any of the steps that we put in place, all the way through to the client's reporting or CRM, that we're able to get that information back on the back end. And I can talk about that here in a little bit, how we do that. But from a performance standpoint, it's really made every detail more important. And so we are not running ad campaigns with AI. We're not, there are agencies out there that are doing that where the AI is making all the bid adjustments and all the creative changes and everything. We don't internally believe that that's the best route to take yet. Again, with that human creativity side of things that we just talked about, but we are using it heavily for our research because the margin for error and the opportunity to learn is lessened in the last couple of years. So we have to hit the mark quickly and right at the beginning of a campaign. It used to be you ran a campaign and you collected data for a couple months and then began to make your optimizations and maybe over a 6 to 12 month timeline, really fine tune that campaign. Well, that timeline is shortened by about a third now, or maybe even more. So we're seeing results in the first 6 weeks. That used to take about 6 months. And a lot of that is driven by the data and the influence of AI. Not necessarily AI running the campaigns, though.
Okay. So I may be behind the times a little bit here. Are you still talking about using Google Pixel and things like that for gathering your data, or how do you actually gather the data? Do you have new tools?
Certain, and there's people at the agency that are going to be able to talk about this better than I can, but there's pixels, there's scripts, there's code that is put into the back of a website that enables the website to communicate actions and activities that occur back to the ad platform. So, in Google's case, I think it's a bit of JavaScript. Um, Facebook uses a pixel. So yes, to answer your question, it's making sure that those two systems are able to talk and that the information that's flowing between systems, and in most cases, multiple systems outside of that, and that all the information is coming through accurately and makes sense.
Gotcha. I mean, garbage in, garbage out, right? So
Right.
if you don't have really good data, it definitely impacts and especially if you use a pay for performance model, you need to really show the client that you're giving them their performance.
Right. A good example of that is most of the time when we are working on a commission basis, and we're one of the few performance agencies that truly works on a commission basis, we're pulling those reports directly from the CRM, not the ad account or not Google Analytics. So we have to make sure that all that information is tracked and accurate and is flowing through the different systems all the way from, beyond the click. When it's e-commerce, it's really easy. Did somebody make a purchase? But when it's a business to business client and they have a 3 month sales cycle, that information can really make a big difference, especially when you're dealing with bigger numbers, larger deals. Then missing a couple leads can be really detrimental. And conversely, if we're not optimizing for the right stuff, the right information, it can also, it's that garbage in, garbage out that you were just talking about. It can really hurt the performance on a campaign.
Yeah. So sorry, number of ideas running around in my head.
No
So
problem.
for companies just beginning to integrate AI into their marketing stack, do you have a framework that you think works to, from strategy to execution to make sure they can actually, measure the ROI and avoid wasted investment?
We do, and kind of a sidestep to that is what I don't think the question that most people aren't answering is, let's say AI is used as a chatbot that's on the website.
Mhm.
A lot of folks over the last couple of years have been really interested in building out those chatbots that hopefully are answering questions and hopefully are guiding people to the right place on the website and encouraging conversion. But in most cases, there's attribution information that's lost in that process. So making sure that the appropriate credit is given to the appropriate source and not giving credit to the chatbot when an ad from, let's say, Facebook drove the user to that website in the beginning. You need to know both. But to us, a lot of times those chatbots are a method similar to calling or a web form. A call-in lead and a web form lead are both methods, but ultimately the source information is what tells you the ROI.
Right.
So we have to track both, and a lot of cases the chatbot is we're losing that attribution information when we get into that chatbot situation. So we're trying to find creative ways to keep that information even once somebody engages with the chatbot, and then treat that as a method of conversion as opposed to a source. And I see that pretty often when we're inheriting new accounts, that is what's going on, where you know the web chatbot is getting credit for all the leads that are coming through, but we don't know what drove people to the website in the first place. Was it direct? Was it referral sources? Was it Google? Was it Bing? Was it Facebook? Wherever it was. Well, we don't know. We just know that they landed on the website and they spoke with the chatbot and they filled out a form. So
Okay.
we want to do both.
So what's the best way to get that attribution? Is it to have a questionnaire on the form or with the chat bot to say, how did you find us? Or is it just to collect their email address and try to link that back somehow to who they are and where they came from?
We've got a system for it. It might be a little proprietary, but we do have some software that we use that essentially kind of connects and makes sure all that information flows through all the way through the experience, including the chatbot. But I try to stay away from user self-guided forms at questionnaires at any point, because a lot of times it's uncanny that people will just put the simplest or the easiest answer, and they don't really, it's not very accurate is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, I've definitely seen that. And I myself sometimes look at the choices and I'm like, I'll just click other.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other crazy thing right now is that if we see that the lead source was Google, we don't know if it was actually Google. And this is way more gray than it used to be a couple years ago, because that search may have originated on Perplexity or ChatGPT, and maybe they included the link or they just mention their recommendation by name. And so somebody goes out to Google and just does a brand search.
Mm.
In our case, it would be WiT Group. Well, yes, you came to the site from Google, but where did you hear about us? Well, originally it was ChatGPT. And so we're seeing a lot of issues with that, where the data is a little bit more blurry than it used to be because of AI. And so that's something we are actively working to try to control. But at the end of the day, if you do a search on ChatGPT and you say, recommend the best restaurant or the best roofer in town, and they give you a recommendation and you go to Google and search, it's going to look like that lead came from Google. And so Google's getting too much credit in certain areas and not enough in others, especially with Gemini and its own AI
Right.
features. It's definitely something that we're constantly trying to make sure that the data is as accurate as possible, but it's definitely not an exact science at this point.
So has your firm become more tech heavy, like hiring more just computer people and developers, or have you had to go that route to try to solve some of these problems?
We had to go that route a couple of years ago, and we hired a very technical director of marketing, a director of digital marketing. And we also are fortunate enough to have a creative director that's also extremely technical. And so that has helped. But as we're going and hiring for those mid-level positions, that is something that we're looking at more and more. Do they have the technical expertise to understand how to set things up in a way that the data is accurate? Do they understand how to do things from a technical standpoint, not just from a marketing standpoint? It used to be you could run an ad campaign and just be a brilliant creative and do okay. And now that's not necessarily the case. The creative helps immensely But if the campaign isn't set up right, if the data is not coming through right, I don't care how good the creative is, there's going to be problems. And so we are looking for more and more technical expertise as we recruit.
Wow. So AI is not only changing the landscape of creating content, but it's also changing the kind of people that are needed to fill roles at a company like yours.
Yeah. And I mean, the other side of that is, we use AI internally. So we've run trainings on, how to write a good prompt. How can you use this prompt and not just give it the most basic information? Give me the market research for a roofer in Augusta, Georgia. Well, you can create a better prompt than that and get better information and get more granular information and do additional searches and additional a little bit extra legwork there. But that's a skill that nobody's really developed yet.
Mm.
People are better at Googling now than they were 20 years ago. And I imagine we'll be a lot better at using AI in the next 5, 6 years. But right now, everybody's just new to this.
One one of my favorite tricks is to actually ask ChatGPT, what's a good prompt to give you to get
Hmm.
this information, and then just see where that goes. I've found that that's been very, very useful sometimes, is have ChatGPT write its own prompt for me.
Yep. We're doing a little bit of that. I think, one of the coolest things I've done recently is I've gotten really accustomed to asking ChatGPT why a certain company or website wasn't the answer it gave. Why didn't you recommend so and so? We're doing AIO and GEO.
That's
Why wasn't
interesting.
so and so, one of my clients probably, the answer you gave? Well, and then it'll list out the reasons why they weren't recommended. So then we know what to work on. It's a punch list at that point.
That's a really interesting idea. I've actually not thought about doing it that way. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe we cut that.
So,
I don't know.
so I mean, what kind of AI products and services are you using internally right now? Or is there some favorite go-to tools?
We are using everything from a couple years ago, we were using Jasper. We've gotten away from that, but we've used Jasper, Claude, ChatGPT extensively. We use Perplexity. We work in that as a search engine, actually. But everything now, I mean, Slack has its own AI feature. Canva has its own AI feature. And there's the Sora, I guess, is where the video guys are working in a little bit now.
Yes. Yep.
And that's getting scary accurate, where I can't tell if it's AI or not, which I guess we're here now 2 years ago saying, oh, I can tell when it's AI. And now I'm kind of unsure. But I mean, even Grammarly is technically using AI. And actually, Grammarly will get you flagged for AI written content, we found out a couple years ago. So we're coming up with strategies for that. So we don't rely too heavily on the grammar checker.
Hmm.
Basically, make all of our content look like it's written by AI. I mean, everything from that to Gemini and just how that's influencing Google search. It's a lot.
Yeah. So have you found places where you haven't found tools that, to do what you want to do, or?
I have been hard pressed to actually do a search for AI that helps with blank and not found an answer.
Mhm.
Usually it's a whole meritage of 40 or 50 competitors they're trying to be first to market in that space, whether it be podcasting, SEO. I mean, there's AI for just about anything that we are looking for. So it's really a matter of where do we want to use it? How do we want to use it? And
Wow.
then ultimately, how do we separate ourselves from the other agencies that also have access to these tools, especially if
Right.
they're free? Okay, well then we haven't we haven't leveled the playing field, or I guess to say it a different way, what makes us different than everybody else that's able to use this tool? Now we still have to layer value on top of that, and that's
Sure.
where the expertise comes from or
Yeah.
comes into play.
And then you have the added challenge of layer value on top of it and show that it's working, so that your pay for performance model ends up working for you at the end of the day.
Right. And where that gets tricky is it's always, the agencies, the burden of proof is on the agency to make sure that you prove the efficacy of the effort and the budget for your clients. But then when it gets into working in specific channels, I mentioned that attribution issue a little bit earlier. Then we've got to make sure that we're being ethical and accurate with that as well, that we're getting
Mhm.
credit where it's due and not credit where it's not due. In a lot of cases, we're not working with a client on every single channel, especially the larger clients that we work with that we might be hired to work in a specific area. well, then we have to make sure that our efforts are trackable, reportable, accurate, and that we are not crossing the lines into other channels or potentially an internal team or another marketing agency's territory. So we just have to be very careful with that.
That sounds very challenging.
It is. It is. So,
Wow.
and
Okay.
we've adjusted over the last year or two to kind of account for that. If we had to do forensic accounting for every single client every single month, it would just be a nightmare for everybody. So we've really tried to streamline how we run those reports, keep them as transparent and automated as possible. And then at that point, we're sending over the report and then making sure there's no discrepancies. But that's
Mhm.
required a lot of streamlining and simplification. Whereas a couple years ago, we could be a little bit more sophisticated with how we ran those reports. Now it's got to be a lot more straightforward.
Okay. Fascinating. Well, I mean, what do you want people who might hire you to know about you and your agency?
So our agency is evolving a little bit. We are incorporating content development. We just hired a brilliant content director, video person, to come lead that effort for the company. Because from a performance advertising standpoint, if you don't have video as a core component to your marketing effort, you're missing out. I think every social platform is majority of the content is digested through video, if
Mhm.
not over 90%. I think people spend an incredible amount of time on reels and shorts, and I'm just experiencing social media that way. So if we weren't able to offer video production, editing, syndication for podcast and things like that, then we as a performance agency aren't doing everything we need to do. So now we're driving leads and we're driving performance and interest and web traffic and all of those good things. But we also are doing that through the use of video. And we didn't do that prior to about 6 months ago. So that's something we're really trying to get into. And now we can do it. Now we can do it in house. We've worked with partners in the past to do it, but you know, we were engaged in that type of work so much that we decided to bring it in house.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad that's
Yeah.
working for you. Awesome. Well, Josh, it's been a pleasure having you on the show and hearing your story about the WiT Group. So thank you, and we'll we'll see you around the internet.
All right. Sounds great. We'll see you.